This episode of the podcast has been brought to you by Sweet Cheetah Publicity. Sweet Cheetah is an inclusive, socially conscious PR collective that puts their money where their mouth is. They have a current roster of bands that reads like a greatest hits anthology. Brainiac, Catholic School, Jawbox, The New Amsterdams, Oceans in the Sky. I mean, the list goes on and on. They also do PR for record labels such as A La Carte, Arctic Rodeo, Steadfast, Rad Girlfriend, and so many more. How do they pay it forward? How do they put their money where their mouth is? By generating thousands of dollars in annual charitable donations to the likes of Women in Vinyl, Coalition of Communities of Color, the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, and many, many more. The man has the receipts. I've seen them. It is real. The artists, labels, and podcasts Sweet Cheetah works with are curated with an eye on working primarily with friends. You could find Sweet Cheetah on all of the social media platforms, be it Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Just look for Sweet Cheetah PR and they will be there. He's been Tim, I've been Peter, and Sweet Cheetah has been beautiful. Hello and welcome to another edition of the Book of Very, Very Bad Things podcast. I'm your host, Peter, and I am still here. Tonight on the show, I'd like to introduce to you Hannah Hoffman of Dutch Experts. Dutch Experts just came out with the Bound by This EP in February, and it is, by all accounts, one of the most phenomenally written, beautifully played, and expertly sung pieces of music I have heard in quite a long time. It's dark, it's soothing, it's jarring, it's vibrant, it encompasses and encapsulates so many different moods, and there's 4 songs, 4 different stories, 4 different pieces that couldn't be more dissimilar yet fit together so perfectly. I highly recommend you go out and buy the vinyl version of this record. You will not be disappointed. Aspects of this interview were a real first for me, as we conducted the interview while Hannah was wrapping silverware at work in a restaurant that allows her to do so. They're very supportive of her career, so hats off to this bar/restaurant for being as cool as they certainly seem to be. Before we get into a little overview of what the interview's about, I know a lot of people are a little annoyed about how much I plug the show in the body of the episode. And to that I say this: it's my show, A, and B, I'm sorry if you don't like it, but if I don't plug it, who's going to? All I'm going to ask you to do is this. I'm not going to shuffle for money. I'm not going to go out and get a busket and go out and spange to keep the show afloat. But what I would like you to do is like, rate, subscribe, go on Instagram, share my stuff if you're so inclined. If you really dig it, tell your friends about the show. Everything else is just noise anyway. And for those of you who do support me monetarily, I thank you so much, and I appreciate all you do for me. On with the show. Hannah started out in, the singer-songwriter milieu, being a big Tori Amos fan, just like myself. But once she, started to yearn for the sounds of, Susie and the Banshees, The Cure, Kate Bush is a big one. She wanted to follow that muse and create something with synths and with those sorts of moods. And I think these 4 songs perfectly lend themselves to that time period and to that sort of music. I think once you've heard this, you will agree. It is perfect. There's nothing bad to be said about anything that occurs on this EP. I'm not going to give you too much of an overview of the episode. It speaks for itself. We talk about a lot of really deep things, as is de rigueur on this podcast. But what I would like to drive home just one more time, please go out, spend a couple bucks. Bound by This is on vinyl, on 2 different colors, worth every penny. And with that, I'll give you a little taste of my favorite track off of the record, Morrigu. That's a little teaser for you. I give to you Hannah Hoffman on the book of Very, Very Bad Things podcast. Dutch Experts, where does this begin for you? Where does this journey start?
Like the band itself, or just in general?
Just the idea of it, the vibe, the music, where it all started for you. Where did it begin? The zygote of the music.
Ooh, I like that word. Yeah. Okay. So I had a band before this band called Dune Hunter, and it was like kind of the beginnings of what I wanted to accomplish, but like I just wasn't like playing with the right people, and I also wasn't writing, like I just wasn't writing what I wanted to write. So I was like, I'm just going to burn this all down. And then coincidentally, it worked in perfect timing with the pandemic. And I was like, great. Like everyone gets a fresh slate. We all get a clean slate. Yeah. So I kind of used that to spur the momentum for Dutch Experts, which if you're wondering what I named it Dutch Experts, I'm sure that is a next question. People are like, well, what is this name? I was listening to NPR, as we all did, a lot in 2020, yep. I'm sure. And so I heard somebody talking, a commentator talking, and they were like referencing the Dutch Experts say, and I was like, that's an interesting combination of words. And my partner was like, you should name your band Dutch Experts. And I was like, nah. And then he was like, you've got to do that. And then I was like, that's so dumb. It's so silly. And then for months I was like ruminating on it. And I'm like, you know what? Actually, it's really cool. I love the way that like the Utch and the X sounds next to each other. So
it's no different than Cocteau Twins. It's no different than Cocteau Twins because it has that same staccato, harsh consonant sort of vibe that smacks together so perfectly. Yeah,
I love a smacking of words together. Mm-hmm. So that's why I went for it. Yeah.
But so upon listening to your music, like with this project anyway, it's such a really glaring like disparate combination of Amy Mann and Susie Sue. That like, and it's very apparent to me that these are hallmarks for you, like within your musical milieu. Was this something that was part of your life, when you were a very young person, listening to these bands and musicians that are quite like they're classic rock to you at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like is it okay if I'm horizontal? Is that weird?
That's fine. That's fine.
Okay, cool. I don't like vertical. Yeah. So like I love singer-songwriter stuff. Like I think I like started as a singer-songwriter. I started with just the piano and my sad little self. And I was just, doing that like female, like sad song thing. And I did that for a long time. And then, like Tori Amos was like a huge moment for me. Like a huge
I followed
moment.
her on the Little Earthquakes tour. I followed her.
Oh my God.
Mhm.
Lucky. I was like probably just being born at that point. But like okay, sorry. But I just no, you're not. You're not.
I am.
You look great.
Thank you.
Whatever you're doing is working. So
alcohol and children.
I'll take whatever you got. I'll take what you're having. Yeah. So I don't know, like Tori Amos. I remember watching a video of her, like an old video of her live at Montreux, and I was like, "Holy shit!" I remember distinctly being like, "I want to do that," and I was probably like 13 at that time, which is a great time to just get all your angst out into music. So I think I watched that video and then immediately like tried to write a song, and it maybe was like the worst thing ever. Like it probably and like. Yeah, definitely one of the worst things that's ever happened. But I didn't stop. It just kept happening. And then I got really interested in like post-punk music and like The Cure and The Smiths and New Order. Like coincidentally, like maybe about a year or two after I saw that Tori Amos video, I watched Sofia Coppola's Marie Antoinette.
Oh yeah.
Have you seen that?
Yes, of course.
And that fucking soundtrack.
Yeah, it's phenomenal.
I was like, what is this? And then I remember like, so my mom was in a rock band in the 80s, which was super cool. But like, she just was like not aware of like this dark, like post-punk, like dark wave kind of thing that was happening. Like she just wasn't aware of it. Like she was like more of like the David Bowie, like, and also like hair metal kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So she like was almost there. Like she knew The Cure, but like I was like, how did you miss this other shit? I was like, Mom, do you know Susie and the Banshees? And she's like, no. And I remember just being like, oh, like felt like I got stabbed in the heart because all I wanted to do was like talk about like the 80s with my mom, and like she just wasn't aware. So, but it's okay.
And your mom's probably close to my age, or hovering in that general vicinity. And Susie was a big deal when I was a kid. Like I would turn on 120 Minutes and Susie Sue was there, and Robert Smith obviously was there. Coincidentally, my daughter, who is in her almost mid-20s, is named after a song on that record right there.
Oh, wow.
Yes. A Letter to Elise. I named my daughter after that song.
That's so nice.
I think there's two sorts of people though. Like you either got that when it was happening,
right,
or you didn't, and more often than not, you didn't. It's not your mom's fault. She just wasn't attuned to that. You know,
I was like, Mom. It was really gut wrenching for me, but we got through it. We're here. We're here now, so it's all good.
But how did you come across this stuff though? Like because if you're my age, yeah, you're gonna find it. Like dark wave and goth are like they were almost omnipresent for my age group. But for you,
yeah,
I think that moment had come and gone.
Yeah, I really think like seriously, like I would watch that. That was how I absorbed it, was like through that movie. I just remember feeling like such a potent connection to that soundtrack. I was like, I have to know what these bands are. Like, I have to know. So I was, going to like record stores and like looking through like old records. And like, I grew up in like the middle of nowhere, New Hampshire. So like, this shit wasn't accessible really.
Right.
So like I would go to like the big city, which was like, not a city, it was like 10,000 people lived there, and like look through this record bin, and it was a Newberry Comics. So it was like pretty curated. It wasn't like, there wasn't a lot of gems. So I think I found like a couple Smiths records and definitely The Cure. And I also was like hanging out with punk bands at that time. So I think that kind of like helped fuel, like people knew what I was talking about. And so I like got my music through that and like sharing with them and and they were like a little older, so they kind of like knew more about it. I was hanging out with people I shouldn't have been hanging out with when I was like 14.
Yeah.
You know? So anyway.
I was the person you shouldn't have been hanging out with at 14, for certain. Like growing up in the hardcore scene of the late 80s, early 90s, we were like the catch-all. You know what I mean? The punks and the hardcore kids, we were also into the Smiths, and we were into New Order, and we were into Lycia, and all of these really disparate musical genres. Kind of like we caught it all. You know?
Yeah.
You could hear Jimmy Eat World, and you can hear like Bloodlet and Dead Guy and every other whacked out band on earth. That's the beautiful thing about it, though. Like, you call it post-punk, it could be anything. You know, we don't have to marry one certain sound, but I think with this EP, there is a definitive, if not, you know, model and sound to it that has, it's a part of a tradition, but it doesn't marry that tradition. You know what I mean? I could hear the Amy Mann and the Tori Amos and the Susie Sue in it, but it's still your own character. I almost feel like with these specific 4 songs, you're inhabiting a character, be it your own or something you've dreamed up. I don't know where the lyrics are coming from. Lyrically speaking, where do you think these 4 songs come from?
Wow, these are all so nice. Thanks for seeing me. Thanks for seeing me. So this particular, I like had written an entire album first, and then I scrapped like half of it because I was like, I hate half of it. Well, I don't hate it, but I thought it wasn't good enough. You know, it wasn't good enough. And like, I haven't even like gone back to those songs. I've just like, they're gone. They're in the trash. They're fire. They're like flames have eaten them. I like to just start things and just leave them if I hate them, you know?
Yeah.
But the 4 songs that I came up with were like really, like I was going through like a really hard time at that point. Just like I was having like a mental breakdown. So they're like very personal, but they're also kind of like steeped in like hope for what I was really hoping that like we would get out of the pandemic and like get out of it okay. And I was like really hoping that for myself.
Sure.
Turns out I did. Turns out we all made it. Well, a lot of us made it. Obviously a lot of us didn't, which sucks, but like, holy shit, it was just such a weird time.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like, wow, my finger, sorry. I don't know how to use a phone. I'm a millennial who doesn't know how to use a phone. So yeah, I would say like everything was just like, I was writing from like this place of like really intimate, self-reflection upon like having a breakdown, but also like being like, oh, you're okay. Even though like you feel like you're not going to be okay, but like, you know, that you're going to be able to like get through it. It was kind of like a love letter to my, I guess like fortitude is a good word, or like my ability to get through the tough shit, I suppose.
Yeah, but if you listen to us, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, having grown up speaking Polish, I'm going to Polish the shit out of it, but Morrigu.
Yes.
That to me, that's a song that sounds like a human being who's seeing, it's like you're seeing the end of the world, but you're making peace with it. That's kind of like the vibe that I'd gotten lyrically and musically from it, because they're 2 different things almost, really.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why I asked about like inhabiting a character, because musically this EP is one thing, but lyrically it's almost something else.
Yeah, it's an interesting contrast of things, because really like that time felt like super contrasted. Like everything that was going on in the world felt insane. And yet we're all just kind of like, I mean, I don't know if it was like a byproduct of us just all dissociating from like how insane it was. I feel like a lot of that's probably true. But then like also I was like, I have to think of something that's going to keep me going here. Like in the light of this like mental breakdown I'm happening on top of like being so isolated and like not really knowing what's going to happen for me in my life. And already like on top of that, just feeling generally lost before that time of the pandemic, because I was like, you know, in my mid-20s and I had no idea what the fuck I wanted to do. I mean, I knew what I wanted to do, but I'm like, I don't know. I don't think anybody cares. And I don't think I'm good enough. You know, all the self-doubt and like the crippling like anxiety and like the negative self-talk, which is just a bad thing that we all need to stop doing. Why did we do that? So
I wish I had an answer for that. And being a Gen Xer myself, my entire youth really was a juxtaposition of negative self-talk and male bravado, because like we're coming into this whole the hardcore thing for me, but also like the alternative things happening, and we're finally talking about feelings for the first time, but there's still that wanting to be seen as this viable masculine creature, and that's completely and utterly worthless, useless male posturing. And finally, I think in this generation, that stuff is no longer championed or seen as a true product of the masculine being. But boy, I really wish I had been born in this time and place. But I think furthermore, just to throw that away, when you're talking about the way the pandemic kind of leveled us all, it's almost like a great reset, and it leveled, you know, even your generation and mine, because I got to self-reflect. I got to raise my, at that point, 1-year-old son, which was, I was in bliss for most of the pandemic, to be quite honest. But
yeah, you got time with your kids.
Yeah.
Like you got to like actually be like, whoa, like I'm not like just completely like going hard all the time and just like being strung out on like whatever this work fucking hustle that we're always like hustling.
But we all came out of it though with a new sense of identity. You came out with this project. I came out with this podcast.
Did you?
Yes. This whole thing with my wife saying, you know, get your shit together and do something, because your band's not playing. We're all locked down. Do something. You're a journalist. Do journalism again. Okay.
Oh my God, that's so
and this
sweet.
is born. And for you, you know, Dutch Experts is born. I think for as, you know, as negative and as, you know, brutal as it could have been for all of us to have been locked down for that amount of time, I think we all sort of also reached into ourselves, found the innermost thing that brought us viability and made us exuberant.
Totally.
And brought that to the fore. I think that's obvious with these 4 songs. I just wish I could hear the rest of the songs you'd written, because I'm sure they're not as like you're throwing them away, but I guess curating is important.
Yeah.
You
I
know?
think like these 4 as a group, they just sounded the most correct together, if that makes sense. Like, yeah, you know. But I have like, I'm working on a full length right now, which I started working on this like over a year ago at this point, but it's the same process of like, you know, you write something and then you like listen to it a million times and you're like, and then like, you're like, write some more and you're like, okay. I'm just like a slow writer. I don't think anyone should be a quick writer. I don't know.
Being prolific is vastly overrated, because it's all woodshedding, right? You're coming up with things, and if you're too precious about it, it becomes product, or it's not product enough. If you're too underly precious about it, then you're just spitting stuff out. There's got to be a balance. You got to strike a nice balance where you're actually being mindful of what you're bringing into the universe. I think that's important. You're right about that.
Yeah, I'm trying to be very mindful, like just in general. I feel like that's another thing that I learned about my mental breakdown is like being aware that I have the capacity to carry like so much shit that I don't need to be carrying.
Other people's shit, probably.
Actually, yes.
Yep.
Like 99.9% of it. And then like turning it into my shit and making it my shit. And then also like that takes up so much space psychically and energetically that like it just wasn't healthy. It wasn't conducive to me like thriving and making art. So now I'm just trying to be mindful about like how much stuff I take on. And I feel like I've like gotten so much better about like boundaries and also like just like allowing myself time and space to make art and not feel like I have to owe anybody like my time when I need my own time, you know? So yeah.
You got to turn this thing off sometimes. And,
Yes.
having been born of a time period where I didn't even have the internet until I was in college.
Yeah, it's wild.
My social interactions and I didn't have to acquiesce to anything that was that external. It was the same group of like 5 or 6 people that I interacted with on a daily basis, and a whole bunch of other peripheral people who, no matter what they thought of me, I didn't care because I didn't know about them. They didn't know about me. We just didn't like each other. That's the end of it.
Right.
You grew up in a time and space where this was always kind of around, wasn't it? Like internet, computer, cell phone.
Yeah, I just remember it like being so viscerally becoming a part of my life, like as I was becoming a teenager, which is like, the apex of like your social skills, like being put to the test.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, like I feel like I was a really like kind of a solitary kid. I did a lot of stuff by myself and like was really imaginative and like did a lot of like my idea of fun was like sitting down and like writing like a 40-page book about a girl that got de-liposucked. I like wrote a whole series about this girl who got de-liposucked. So that's where my brain was at when I was a kid. And my mom was like, okay, like as long as you're not like out doing drugs, then you can sit here and write on Microsoft Word for like 5 hours a night. Like that's cool. So that's what I did.
I was a horror writer from pretty much age 5.
Okay.
Like kindergarten. We were given we were posited the notion that we were supposed to write a story about our home life. So I had an imaginary friend when I was a kid that, to my estimation, existed, and I still sort of believe existed on this plane. And I wrote about it, and my parents were obviously called in thereafter, and were asked questions about what's going on at home.
Of course,
but
5 is pretty. That's young.
But I'd known how to read since I was 3, and I was reading Stephen King when my parents weren't looking. I was that kid.
Yeah.
And strangely, my son is also that kid.
So you're like, I know this. I know where this is going.
Oh yeah, and I'm good with it because he's going to be an imaginative psycho freak that I'm going to love the shit out of. But
that's so great.
Yeah.
Let's all be psycho freaks. I feel like there's not enough of them.
I'm so good with it. I'm here for it. I'm good with it, but I'm an old parent. If I were, the way I had been with my daughter when I was in my mid-20s as a new dad, I was a little more terrified of the world.
Yeah, that's fair. It's a terrifying place.
With a daughter too. I mean, I think it's different with dad and daughter, dad and son, sort of that relationship. But I think the world is a better place now too. Truly.
Yeah.
I think your generation like delivered on a lot of promises of what my generation was trying to do. And you all came by it so simply just by living truth.
Yeah.
It couldn't have happened in the 90s, the way things are now with the way people identify with themselves, the way people express themselves. It wouldn't have happened then. It wouldn't have struck such a chord. I think there's something special about your generation in that aspect, but also musically, because you guys are taking what's great about what happened before and making it better.
Ideally.
I think what that leads me to though is there like that apex point in your youth where all of these things kind of came to the fore and made sense to you, like, okay, this is what the world is supposed to be? Or was it always just at the back of your psyche that this is how things are?
Wow, that's an interesting question. I still am like not sure. I feel like I'm just starting to like understand how I function in this world. And so I'm like, oh, all that time that I just spent like floundering around, like literally just like flopping like an amoeba in like this weird space. Like I'm just sort of like, what was that? I'm sure you can relate.
Oh,
But
absolutely, yeah.
but then I realized like we're all just that's just kind of us. And like, you know what? Like people don't actually know what's going on at all. And then the beautiful thing of it is that you just kind of like roll with it. And it's either like you roll with it and you're like, whatever, like let's do life affirming shit and like be alive and like live life to the fullest, or you just like let your crippling self-doubt and anxiety like eat you alive, which, you know, was the case for me for a long time. But I think like what the world is doing and how that affects me, I kind of just like can't let it. I have to just kind of like be true to myself, I think, because I know that I'm like a mirror to what everything, like inevitably I'm like a mirror to everything that's outside of myself.
Yeah.
You know? So sure. I'm going to just like interpret it and like let it come through me and do what it will in the way that it was meant to. I don't know if that answers your question.
No one does. I'm screaming into the infinite, just like the rest of us. But
it was a good question, but it was so existential. I was taken aback.
The entire conceit of this podcast is existential dread. That's
kind of what I was getting. Okay.
Yeah, that's I only have one pre-prepared question for every artist. Everything else is just my feeling around in the darkness, trying to get to know you. That pre-prepared question being, what is it that terrifies you on an existential level?
Oh. I mean, isn't it the same answer for everyone? Like,
you would be surprised. You would be surprised.
Okay, well, I would say death. Like, just, I know that's such a basic answer.
No, it's
not.
But
it's not, right? Because it's just like, I think ultimately it is death. And I'm okay with admitting that. Like, I know some people are like, I'm not afraid to die. And I was like, shut the fuck up. You are.
Unless you've been dead.
Unless you've been dead, which is, that's a whole other thing, right? Yeah. That we could get into. But as someone who has not been dead, and hopefully won't for a while, I'm going to go ahead and knock on some wood here. I'm a superstitious bitch. I think that, that's probably what I'm most existentially afraid of. I feel like sometimes I like realize, like I'll wake up in the middle of the night, I'll be having a nice gentle sleep, and then all of a sudden like I'll wake up and be like, oh my god, like I'm gonna die, and then I like get sad, but then I'm like, oh, you know what, it's cool because like I still could do things that I want to do, and then I'll just like flip it.
Yeah,
but like deep down I'm like, holy shit, dude, like it's gonna end at some point.
Of course.
Which is fine, because it kind of does suck sometimes.
Right, but I can tell you with a great degree of certainty that death or dying is it's not even the end of consciousness. It's just you're sloughing something off. I OD'd in 1994.
Oh fuck, man!
Yeah, a long time ago. A long time.
Wow.
But yeah, I did, and I came out of that. I'd gone into it being a non-spiritual person, lapsed Catholic. Came out of it not having a defined idea of spirituality, but certainly spiritual, because maybe I was just experiencing cellular death or whatever they want to call it. But to me, I'd experienced something. I'd felt something. I'd been made aware of something. And I felt better about absolutely everything, having faced that down. So am I still afraid of death? Probably somewhere. I think what I'm really more terrified of is the vastness of the universe. Just how expansive everything is, how big everything is, and how small I am. That's terrifying.
That is terrifying. It's like really terrifying. So I used to think about that a lot. You know what? I'm actually entering like my selfish era.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like I'm one of those people who has spent my whole life just like catering to everybody else. I am a giver. I am like, I'm going to just be unabashed in talking about myself because I know it's true. I've like been pretty selfless for my whole life. And that comes with like another exhaustion, like another level of exhaustion. And so after like this, like I got sick, which is why I like had this breakdown. I got really sick and I was like so scared about that. And that kind of ties into like death and your mortality, right? And so I had this breakdown and I was just like, dude, I gotta like stop doing everything for everybody else. And I need to like try to do something for myself. And then when I finally, really did like put the work in that I wanted to put in and like was like, no, I'm not going to do that for you. I'm going to do this for me. And like now I'm like, oh, it's okay to like to be a little, and it's not even like selfish. It's literally just like having boundaries, right? But to me, I'm like, oh, I'm being selfish because that's like how fucked up my brain is.
Yeah, that's codependent brain.
Yeah, that's codependent brain. Let's talk about that.
Yeah,
let's talk about anxious attachment style, which is like, me. Hi.
Oldest of 6 kids. Yes, I know all about it.
Oh my God. Yeah. Okay. So I'm the oldest too. I only have a little sister, but she is like enough for like 3 children in one, basically. So yeah, I get it. It's crazy out there.
Well, yeah, you fall into the third parent sort of
oh yeah
slot, and the sick thing is you're appeasing, depending upon what your dynamic is at home. If mom and dad are both there, you're appeasing both of them, and then you're appeasing little brothers and sisters, and you're kind of being that goalie, and you're not you're internalizing everything, but you're not allowing yourself to exist in the moment. You're just living for everyone else, and it becomes very self-deprecating, and leads you into some very dark places. Led me into addiction, like with aplomb, just like, here it is. You don't want to feel anything, there you go, buddy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I got into musical theater. That was my route.
Drama geek.
Drama nerds.
Yeah, I was a drama nerd. Yep. Yes, I was.
I was one of those people who like wanted to be a bad kid. Like I really, really wanted to be a bad kid. I was like, I'm gonna sneak out and like smoke some weed with my friends. And I just like failed miserably at it. Like I was like so like lame at being bad. Going back to that responsibility bit. Yeah. I always had this little thing inside of me that was like, no, you can't do that. So I really sucked at being a bad teenager. I did go off in my like, once I was 18, I kind of was like, oh, I could be bad, and I moved out. So whatever. Mm-hmm. But it turns out that I'm really just more of like a nerd, which is fine.
Oh yeah, but you can. I have proven that you can be both, because
yes,
having struck out on my own when I was 16 years old, graduating high school way too early, and having been given the keys to, my own self-determination, it turns out that I make terrible choices when I'm not responsible for other people. When I'm just in charge of me, my body is most certainly an amusement park. And I just did and said and enjoyed whatever. So codependent brain says, I need people to take care of.
Right.
I don't need anybody to take care of me, but I need people to take care of, or I go vastly awry.
Wow, it's so fascinating, like how we all kind of, I don't know, the codependent thing is so crazy. But it's such a reality.
You have to wonder though, like how much of it is codependence and how much of it is just, the order of things. Like we're humans, we're supposed to be matriarchal, patriarchal, whatever. We're supposed to take care of what we bring into this world, right?
Yeah.
Um, do we have to play the roles that they have ascribed to us? Not really. But
Yeah.
do we have to take care of what we bring into the world? Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's when you make things purposely to take care of, to make you feel better about yourself, that it becomes codependent and dark. I didn't fall into that trap. I only have 2 children. They are 18 years apart.
That's kind of wild too.
Yeah, it is wild. It is wild. But
That's so cool.
I met the right woman. Is what that
Yeah.
came down to. I spent
That's huge.
I spent a long time kind of staying away. Like I already have a kid. I don't need like that deep of a relationship. But
Right.
then I did, and it was great. But that's where codependence and just being a real human being clash. Or
Yeah.
can be delineated. I mean, have you come across like how that makes sense in your own life, where the codependent thing kind of gets superseded by what is actually in your personality and nature?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm like still taking care of my parents and still taking care of my little sister and still like it's just like a thing that I'm like I can't not
I still
do.
take care of my mom. I get it.
Yeah, I can't not do it, But it is I'm very aware of it. So that's the difference now, I think. Before it was like, I used to be really into like smoking weed a lot, and I think it was just because I like needed it to like numb myself from just like being so like burnt out on everything. And that was like what I did. That's how I checked out.
Right. Don't you think creating music is how you maybe not check out, but how you make sense of everything, and it actually ticks the same boxes as getting fucked up and sloughing the world off. Now it's a very mindful way of translating these things that you're feeling, and also letting that steam off a little bit, letting the pressure off so you don't fucking explode.
Absolutely. I mean, so like my parents split up when I was 13.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember distinctly that being like the same time I started writing songs. And it was like the only way that I could like convey what I was feeling. Cause I was also just a really bad communicator too. Classic.
Yeah. And the whole picking sides thing too. Like,
oh yeah. Like, and then my dad was a like massive alcoholic, and my mom was like,
I know that motherfucker.
Yeah. That guy. Yeah, it's a real thing. And so, it was like I didn't really know what to do. And then he married someone who was also an alcoholic, like really close, like really soon after my parents split up. So it just got really chaotic for a while. And so that was my release was playing music. And like, I didn't know how to like convey my anger. I didn't want to go to a therapist. I didn't want to like do anything that my mom was suggesting I do, but I did want to like play music. So yeah, that's something that's really special about my connection to like making art,
because it's you come by it very naturally. It's honest.
It's honest and raw, and like, some of those things should never be like some of those moments I had with my piano, just me and my piano, should never be recreated.
But let's go back to Tori Amos though. Like me and a gun and a man on my back. Like,
oh my God. I just got chills, dude. Yeah.
That is raw, as real, and as sincere as any human being who's ever created a song has ever been.
Yeah.
And she does it every fucking night. I've seen her do it at least 18 times personally.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Like I said, I followed her on the Little Earthquakes tour, on the Boys for Pele tour. I only saw her twice on the second album. I'd only seen her twice on that one, but I'd seen the concert for Rain in person where she performed with Maynard James Keenan from Tool.
Oh my
Doing
God,
Muhammad, my friend.
stop.
Yes, yeah.
Whoa.
I'm kind of major with Tori Amos. She's a big deal for me.
Okay, I'm glad I brought her up.
Yeah. So
Cool.
I've never seen Tori where she doesn't play that song and where she doesn't do a Cure cover at least once. And this is a great segue into how beautifully you cover The Cure.
Oh, thank you.
The Cure is my favorite band. The Cure is my favorite fucking band. And
they're so good. They're so good.
I'm going to see them twice on this tour. It's probably the last time any of us will ever get to see them. I've seen
Where
them.
are you going?
Philly and New York.
Oh shit, I'm going to the Boston one.
Well, I mean, you're all the way up there. I'm in.
Where are you?
Upstate Pennsylvania, Scranton.
You're in Scranton. No, yeah, I thought I read that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Home of The Office. We love it. We love it.
Yep. Although they have nothing to do with us. Yes.
Of course. Of course not.
But
that's sick.
There's such a major through line that kind of transcends generations with The Cure, especially. Yes. Because Robert Smith never fucked up. Morrissey has made some very questionable decisions.
Of course. Yeah, Robert is like a king among kings.
He is. And even people who I know who are in The Cure who no longer are in The Cure and don't really love Robert still say he's still that guy. You know, it's not like he's a terrible person. He just we didn't get along anymore. You know, I'm not going to blow anybody's spot up, but if you look back far enough on my show, you'll know who I'm talking about. And there's certain people who just they're kind of like pinions of what is good and wonderful about the world. Robert Smith is one of them. And you know, the way you cover The Cure, you don't pander to how it's supposed to sound. You do it the way you feel it, and that's, I think, what makes it so special. And I was just talking to Tim from Sweet Cheetah, one of my best friends on earth. Legit.
I want to meet him. I love him. I love his email presence.
He's a beautiful man, and he's like, the way Hannah covers The Cure. I said, "Oh, I know, man. I know. I've watched it. I've witnessed it, and we're both Cure heads." It almost makes me feel like you were experiencing The Cure when I was, even though there's no way in fucking hell you did.
Maybe I was there, like cosmically.
Cosmically, maybe.
I feel it.
I have a belief that we are sort of omnipresent. We do kind of get to experience everything on a different timeline, but that's my weirdness.
I'm down. You know, I'm down to entertain the notion.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like it's funny that you bring this up, and also thank you. I really appreciate that. It's really sweet for also seeing that. Mm-hmm. You're just a seer. You're seeing things over there.
I see things.
Yeah, you're doing a nice job of seeing. So like 2 days ago, literally, I was like, I just had so many feelings. I was like, damn, I need to go outside and take a walk. So I took my dog for a walk, and I was listening to Disintegration front to back. And I just like that moment when they come in, like just the opening of the album, like I just was like, I like started sobbing. I just started sobbing because I was like, I'm like going to cry right now. Like, this is like some of the most beautiful fucking just beautiful music, and like it hits every chord of like whatever it is that I struggle to express about the human condition. The only way that I know how to is like through making music. Like it's that for me, you know. And like I know everyone who loves The Cure like understands what I'm saying, because it's like it's just an untouchable but like very human thing that we all understand.
The first time I was ever not the first time I ever had sex, because that was a very terrible thing. Not terrible, but certainly forgettable. as I was very young at the time and shouldn't have been dabbling in what I was dabbling in. But the first time I'd been with someone that I had feelings for, and it was very real and existential for me. That album had just really come out,
Oh
and
my God.
we were listening to it, and it was all magical and candles and gorgeous. So whenever I hear Disintegration from the beginning, that's where my head goes.
Oh, that's a beautiful memory.
It's a great memory. I'm very psychically tied to it. It'll never leave me, but I probably would have had the same feeling for that album regardless of whether or not that had taken place. And I think that's what makes it even more important, because that album, just like Pornography before it, they're encapsulating a juxtaposition of beauty and darkness.
Totally.
And very few artists can do that. I think you can do that. I think you have that.
Stop.
I think these 4 songs have a cyclical ability to kind of fold in upon beauty and darkness, because like I said, I hear like that Susie Sue's in there, but like so's Amy Mann and so's Tori Amos, and you know, it doesn't really have a finite point where it falls apart. It just continually sort of folds in upon itself in a very, very succinct way. I appreciate that, and I see it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So
I appreciate it.
I want to know when I get to hear a full album, the whole kit and caboodle.
Dude, me fucking too. I'm working on it. I'm very much in like the writing process, which for me is like it's gonna be a challenge, because I need to like allow myself to like let go of some of my, like we're saying before, like the crippling self-doubt piece. I've applied for like 3 grants in the last month, and so I'm really hoping that I can get some grant money, because my plan would be to take off a lengthy amount of time from day job, Phil, which we all love.
Yeah.
And then just like be locked in a shack. Like I'm picturing like being in Wales in particular, and like just like having moors and like my sad little body and just writing and being like, oh my God, the world is so beautiful. And like, yeah, that would be the goal. But before that happens, still chipping away at it. I would love to say that next year I would put something out. That would be my goal, ideally.
Mm-hmm.
You will.
Oh, my coworker just said you will. He's been like, it's so sweet. So I work at a bar, and he's been playing my music at the bar, and I'm like, I'm deeply embarrassed by it, but I also kind of love it too. Yeah. So, you know, it's really sweet. I have really supportive friends in my life, so that's helpful.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
I wish I had the same.
No, I'll be a supportive friend.
Thank you.
Come in.
I see. I don't know, like the self-sufficiency in what you've accomplished. Like, you know, you did this all kind of yourself, did you not? Like the vinyl release, everything. That's all the t-shirts. It's all you, right?
Yeah, it's all self-funded. I have this amazing friend who is like the biggest supporter of local music and like I've ever met. And I'm like, there needs to be like 10 million of you. But he put like the initial payment down to make the vinyl happen, and also like had a connection with the vinyl plant. So he like was able to get me in like so quick. It was like a 6-month turnaround. It was crazy.
What?
Yes. Like
I've been waiting over a year for a 7-inch.
I'm sure you have. And that's the kind of shit I'm saying. It's like fucking crazy out there. But this vinyl plant, like it's here in Vermont, it's in Burlington. It's like
same one Old Moon uses, I'm sure.
Yeah, yep, exactly. Yeah. Yep. They're literally like the nicest fucking people. And like they care about local music, and they're like super like punk. They're like old school punk. They're probably in your generation, like they're just like, they don't want corporate bullshit. So they're Tom's
a real one. Tom's a real one for sure.
Tom is a real one for sure. Yeah, he's a good dude. So Yeah. So it's like Tom actually knows like these people I'm talking about too. So like we're all like connected. It's a small state. We all like know each other in some weird way.
Yeah.
So yeah, so like that was that, but like that's really the only help I got. I did everything else. Like I just dipped into the old savings account.
Yeah.
you know. You know how it is.
Oh, sadly I do.
Yeah. So I did that. Which
But
was
yeah,
cool.
you did it like, you know, the old hardcore bands did. It was very DIY, very you know, like boots on the ground style.
Yeah.
You can only go up from there, which is the beautiful thing. Like, I built this myself. If you want to be a part of this, you have to meet me on this level and then up the ante. So
Right.
you wrote your own ticket. That's what's better than that. And you got two different colors of vinyl. It's all beautifully packaged. I what more can you ask for in life? That being said, how do you want to approach the way you do business from here on? Do you want to still do it like this, like on your own terms, or would you be open to a label or
I
something
would
of that ilk?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I would be open to the right label.
Mm-hmm.
My partner has been on a record label for like years, and he kind of got like dicked around by them.
Yeah.
And like he's in like a metal band, so it's like a totally different, it's just a different world. And like I feel like metal is, I don't know, it's just tricky out there for like people on record labels who aren't like necessarily like Taylor Swift, you know.
Sure.
And Taylor Swift still has it fucking tricky too, but at least she's making like $1 million a show.
And she stuck it right up their asses too. I have to give
That's
her credit
true.
for that.
That's true. That was a punk move. I
Very punk.
appreciate.
Yep.
Yes, I appreciated that. Thanks, T. Let's go. But like if it were the right label, because I really love the idea of like having like a collective, like being a part of a collective that's like minded, being a part of like a group of people that I could like potentially tour with and like, you know, do like be able to be like, let's put together a show or whatever. So I did reach out to a la carte like this past fall to send them my demos, and they were like very interested, but then it just kind of didn't work out, which is fine.
That's weird though. I know those dudes really well. I can't believe they didn't jump on this.
They were into it, but they were like we just like have too many like things on our plate for like this year, which is fair because I think they had just like signed someone who was like similar to me, and it would probably like their bandwidth was probably whatever. It's like if it's not this one, maybe I'll try the next one. I'm just gonna see what happens. I just want like I want as much control as I can have.
That,
you know,
the thing is, I think in this day and age with independent record labels, control isn't the number one problem that artists have with labels. I think right now what it has to do more with than anything is money behind you. And no one's going to care about you the way you care about you.
Yeah.
So
that's true.
I think the holy grail is kind of like the distribution deal.
Yeah.
Where they'll put it out, they'll get it out there, they'll get, you know, radio or whatever behind you. And everything else is self-directed. But that's just me spitballing because no label gives a shit about my band. I'm just doing I'm doing what I do and that's it. And
that's all we can do though, you know? Like how the fuck can we do anything else? And like why should we? Like for corporate gain. It's really just all about capitalism, and it's really lame.
Well, capitalism is lame. Let's face facts. And
it's true.
We're all real. I think we're all out here kind of hoping that, you know, the tooth fairy's real and that Donald Trump is going to go to jail for doing all the terrible shit he did. And
oh my God.
Like I think we're all hoping for it, but in all reality, we're just going to have to take those tiny victories that come our way, like, you know, maybe the P video comes out and and you know, maybe your favorite band will get a single out on KROQ, or it's all about the small victories. I think this EP is more than a small victory. Everyone I talk to who's in the know, who knows this stuff, and I have some very good friends who were in some very prominent dark wave bands in the 90s who are very aware of this EP.
Whoa.
And
that's crazy.
And love the shit out of it.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So you're making your claim. You're staking your claim right now. It's only up from here, in my opinion.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Peter.
I know very little about the world, but I know this. This EP made a big impact on a ton of people that I know.
Oh, cool.
So the next thing is going to be hotly anticipated. And
man,
I can't wait to fucking hear it.
That's the thing, right? It's like, what? So I really fucked myself because now I actually have to I really have to put something out that's really good. So, I mean, not that that's a bad thing, but it's one of those things where you set the bar, right? And this is I haven't put anything out in years. So the last shit I put out, I don't even want to talk about that. That doesn't even exist in my world anymore. But I set the bar. I spent so many years being this isn't right. I'm not going to put it out. And then now I'm oh shit, I'm going to have to actually deliver. I'm going to have to really deliver the next one. But I actually might be doing a surprise single.
Mm-hmm.
Because my boyfriend is recording his album this summer. And so while he's doing that, I might sneak in and do a couple songs and have his band just be my backing band, which is awesome.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, where'd you go? Oh, frick.
I'm right here.
I know you're there. I just hit the wrong button. Oh my God. Okay, I'm back. So I might do a split single of a new thing and maybe a Cure cover.
Oh, nice. Oh, nice.
I don't know. We'll see. But just to throw a little ditty out in the meantime.
Well, that's the thing, right? Just retaining interest and staying prescient. And that's the most important part. Just retaining whatever sort of you get some attention on you, and you just have to keep baiting that hook and reeling them in. I'm still here. I'm still here. I'm still here.
Yeah.
I having the bandwidth for that is very difficult. I don't.
Oh my God.
I don't have that bandwidth. It's not in me. That's why I have, a publicist, and my wife is in charge of the podcast. I'm just this dick who talks a lot of shit and likes music.
Well, you do ask really good questions, so I would say. You're pretty nice. I don't think you're a dick. Not yet.
Well, thank you. Probably
not yet.
A goofball would be the better way to kind of explain me.
Yeah, I feel that vibe.
But since you're at work, I'm not going to beleaguer the point. But if I were to ask you what your ultimate goal is with Dutch Experts, what would that be?
Yeah. So this is the part where my brain is reality, be real. Which I'm I know it's
fuck reality. What's your dream? What's your dream? That's what I want. I want to tap into your dream. Like balls to the wall. Forget about what can be, what is, what should be. You think about this music that you make. You envision it. You close your eyes. You let it wash over you. Where do you see it?
Yeah. I mean, I think when I am my most self, it's when I'm on stage,
Yeah.
So even if I can't live off of my music, which it's so difficult to do that. And even the people I know who are actively just are full-time musicians, it's they're struggling so hard and are in so much debt to their record labels. It's is this worth it? So anyway, I don't care about that. I care about being able to like convey whatever it is that I'm trying to convey and like connect to people. And like I want to give people the same experience that like I have when I listen to music, like when I listen to The Cure, or like when I have those like deeply like spiritual, like I can't even name what's happening right now. I want to have that connection with people, and I want to like give that to them, because like it's such a gift for me to receive that from an artist that I feel a connection to. And I like want to like, I want to like be able to do that.
Yeah.
Like that's like, that feels so good to me. That feels like the most human thing. Like, I don't know. I feel like I'm just like your quintessential like storyteller. Like I have to tell my story, and I want like people to be able to like feel that like they're not alone.
Yeah.
And like, you know, I guess
No, it
that's
makes
it.
sense. It makes sense. To me, it's no different than Tori Amos or Nick Drake or any of those other, like, Leonard Cohen, people who Nick Cave, people who just lay themselves bare. And
Yeah.
and when you perform live, I've never seen it personally. I've seen it on video. I mean, it's you, a synth, and what do you have, a bass player behind you or a guitarist? Like it's very spare.
Well, the lineup has changed so much. Like I just spent the last year like trying to figure out how I want to interpret this live. So I was like touring, I was doing like a bunch of shows over the last year and like playing the EP
Yeah.
without having like any product, and people are like, who the fuck is this band? Like, they're like, how do we listen to it? And I'm like, you can't. Sorry. I'd just be like, mic drop, out, I'm outie. So it's kind of like a power move, which I love, a little power move. And then, I've only played one show since the EP's been out, and I'm just like, cool, I'm good. Like, I might play like a couple more this summer, but I like don't care. I want to like write.
Yeah.
I want to have like a whole show that's like well curated, and like I want to have like the whole kit and caboodle, and like maybe I think I will have a full band, but I don't know. Like the last show I played, my partner played guitar, and it was just like us and like electronic drums and just me on synth, and it like worked really well. But then also I'm like, maybe I do need a drummer. I don't know.
I'm gonna
I
tell
don't
you.
know.
I'm gonna tell you the truth. All you need is your stage behavior is very like captivating. You fall into the spirit of it, almost as if if you were to see a born again Christian revival and they get slain in the spirit and they're like, "Bleh," like it's the same thing when someone's really passionate and austere about what they're doing. They get so deeply into it that you get sucked into it as well. Like
Yeah,
that whole God particle thing comes into being, and you're pulled into it as well. I think you have that. It's not about who you have on stage with you. It's just about doing it. And I think
that's
that's the
true.
most important thing. And coming from a fellow music theater nerd, that's really all you need, is to be honest and to deliver honestly.
That's true.
That's it. That's all you need.
It's a good point, Peter.
But what do I
Thanks.
know? I'm no one.
Sometimes the best people know the most who are considered nobodies, but
Right.
you are somebody. And also, like, what I'm like, that's the thing that I hate the most about like social media is like our perception of like who's who and like who's the authority on what. And like, I'm like, why is this a thing? Like, oh, you've got like a verified like check mark next to your fucking screen name. Like, oh, you must be like it.
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
and then it's just like you talk to these people, of which I know like many verified screen names at this point. I'm just like, they don't fucking know what's going on either. So
Yeah.
it's cool.
Yeah.
But like you're a young kid and you're like on your phone and you're like, oh my God, they're like important because they're verified.
Famous. Like
I'm like, oh my God.
I have personal friends who are verified, who are, I guess, by all accounts, famous, and they're just goofballs like us. They're just people out there trying to find themselves, make it create art and live a beautiful life.
Totally. That's all we can ask for, right?
Yeah.
You know, that's the ideal scenario.
I don't know how you're getting away with doing this at work.
Oh, dude, it's fine. I rolled so much silverware just now. This is so insane, but yeah, this is how it is. But I also really appreciate that you were cool to talk to me, even in my work zone.
I love it. I think it's great. I think it's as real as humanly possible.
Let's be real.
Yeah.
Let's be real.
I want to thank you for coming on this evening.
Thank you for having me.
This was one of the most entertaining conversations I've had on this podcast. I've never had anyone on at work.
Hello, everybody. Here I am.
I will strive for it in the future.
Let's do it again. Same time, same place.
I love it. And when you have the next thing coming down the pike and you're at work and you want to come on my podcast, would you please do so?
Yes, I will. I'm telling you, I could probably get away with murdering someone here. They're so, I don't know. They're the best. They're literally the best. That's why I'm still here, because I'm can't really get this anywhere else. So, but yeah.
Awesome.
OnlyFans out here?
Yeah, I'm on a podcast. I'm almost done. Okay.
All right. Well, we're not OnlyFans, and no one's going to pay to see me anyway. But thank you for coming on tonight, Hannah. And yes, I hope to talk to you again soon.
I would love that. Thank you, Peter.
Have a
good night. You too.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Thus concludes another episode, another chapter. I'd like to thank Hannah for her time, even though it was on her work's time. It was a great interview, great conversation for an excellent musical project that I hope you're all going to go out and spend your hard-earned money on. I'm not going to beat the horse to death. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you come back next week. She's been Hannah. I've been Peter. You've been beautiful. And this has been the Book of Very, Very Bad Things podcast. Take care of each other, everyone. Good night.